like to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Sree Iyer. He will be talking about the vicious campaign against CAA and the role for Indian Americans. He's an inventor and an out-of-the-box thinker. He has over 37 patents in various areas. He recently started, or actually a few years ago, he started a company called PGurus.com, which publishes regular blogs and in-depth articles about various aspects of India. He has also just recently written his first book of fiction, which is called Who Painted My Money White, which is a political thriller. I looked it up on Amazon. It's really cool. And we're very honored to have, and he's donated 20 books as a part of the auction, the fundraising effort. Thank you very much, Mr. Iyer.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful introduction. So this is the book, Who Painted My Money White? And as luck would have it, it's #1 on ebook and paperback in Amazon India. It's been holding its position for close to 4 weeks now, and I hope that it will continue on. Because there's a very important message in this book. Even though it's a book of fiction, there's a very important message. I will talk about that if time permits, because I know we are on a tight time budget today. First off, I just wanted to talk about what the Citizenship Amendment Act is. I want to get the numbers straight first. This act gave citizenship to 31,313 people, of which 25,447 were Hindus, 5,807 were Sikhs, 55 were Christians, 2 Buddhists, and 2 Parsis. And the cutoff date was December 31st, 2014. How did this happen? Now, in order to explain this, I have to give you a couple of quick stories. You know, in 1947, when partition happened, the Hindus were fleeing Pakistan to come to India. They just wanted to get out of what was Pakistan. They didn't realize that if they ended up in what is present-day Jammu Kashmir, that they would not be given citizenship, they would not be given any rights, they would be basically consigned to refugee camps. This started in 1947. There were people who were stateless subjects. They were not eligible for any benefits. If they fell sick, they couldn't go to the government hospitals. By the way, medical care is free in India. If you care to go to a government hospital, people will treat you. The doctors will treat you. They couldn't go there. So this was a problem that has been festering for a long time. Now, there was one other thing that happened. You know, India fought 3 wars with Pakistan, and in each war, there would be situations where India would go and occupy some part of Pakistan, and then things would settle down there, and they would in fact be even running the administration. In fact, one of my friends explained to me what happened during the 1971 war. So there is this border district called Barmer in Rajasthan, and the Indian army went inside Pakistan during the 1971 war, and they occupied 4,000 square kilometers of area. This was 1971, December 1st week or something like that. Now, the Shimla Accord happened many months later in 1972. During that period, the Indian army was essentially running the administration of this occupied 4,000 square kilometers of area. India was, Indian currency, Indian banks, Indian rules, everything. Now, after the Shimla Accord, when Mrs. Gandhi very, very large-heartedly gave back 93,000 prisoners of war, gave back all the land that was occupied, the genocide was completely brushed under the carpet, and also, growing up, I was very young, I remember for everything you did, you paid 5 paisa for the refugee fund. Guess what? A lot of people came from Bangladesh, they never returned back. They're all still sitting in India. Okay. I'll come back to the background on this one a little bit later. So, getting back to the Barmer area, in 1972, after the Shimla Accord was signed, the Indian army started withdrawing back from this occupied area back into India. Guess what? All the Hindus who were in that 4,000 square kilometers of area, They followed the Indian army. They marched back. They said, we will be killed and decimated if we stay back there. Because this is like, an area which was occupied and we just don't feel safe. They just came back into India. Unfortunately, they couldn't be given citizenship. So they were put up in a refugee camp. So in this 31,313 people, these are all people like this, where they were stuck. They came into India, but they didn't have papers, they didn't have proper paperwork, and they had to be regularized. So what turned out to be a fairly routine matter suddenly erupted into riots, huge riots. And if you look at the beginnings of this anti-CAA protest, you will see that it started from the great state of Kerala. They called it the Great Agitation. And then the first signs of problem were in 3 universities where you can see a lot of Kerala students in numbers. AMU, Jamia, and I don't remember the third one. But this is where the thing was started. So why did the whole thing start in Kerala? This book will give you the answers. It's a book of fiction, but it's based on facts. And I urge every one of you, I don't have enough copies for each and every one of you, but I urge every one of you to read this book and understand what is going on. Because in my opinion, Kerala is in a far worse situation today than Kashmir ever was. You're talking about a state where the demographics have changed so radically that it's going to be an uphill task for the Indian government to bring Kerala to the mainstream. Just because there are no riots there doesn't mean what is happening at the ground is calm and peaceful. We have to also feel for the 7 million Hindus who are still stuck in Pakistan. They are mostly in rural Sindh and in rural Punjab. And these 7 million Hindus, they are very, very poor and they are living a life of absolute terror today because every day, 3 girls are being snatched from their homes. They're being raped. In some cases, the entire village takes turns in raping them, and then they marry off that girl to like a special needs guy or an old guy, and that's it. That child's life is over. A recent case that happened last week, if you remember, talked about one situation, but there are lots of unwritten situations. Now, what has this government done? Since 2014, Modi government came up with a framework to try and give citizenship to many of these 7 million languishing Hindus. Unfortunately, because of limited capacity to absorb new population into India, they are giving 1,000 citizenships every month. And these are given by the collectors of 2 districts, Jaipur and Udaipur, which is where most of them land up. Now, what happens is, when they come here, they need to be rehabilitated, they need to have jobs, they need to find some way to keep themselves. I mean, you don't want them to go from a really bad situation in Pakistan, come back here and find that there are no opportunities. After all, India has 130 crores, which is 1.3 billion. So, these people mostly comprise of 3 communities called Ahirs, Bills, and Kolis. And amazingly, it's the same community that lives in India that has taken up their cause. Because they know that if you are from this community, this is your skill set. And this thing about caste and jati is there is no equivalent. Caste was a Portuguese word to denote class. Jati, on the other hand, actually derived from the word Vigyani. Vigyani means scientist. Then it became Gyani. Over the time, Gyani became Jati, which means a person of a particular community was a specialist in one specific trade or art. Which is why today, the same communities are rehabilitating those who are coming from there. But what about the other people? 1,000 people a month is hardly a trickle when you think about how many millions are still left there. They have to be protected, and it's a really, really tough job. Even though every time there is something happening there, the Pakistani High Commissioner gets called and hauled over the coals by the MEA. But does that solve the problem? Why is India not acting like a Balakot? and take out a few individuals, few lumpen elements. These people have done complete mapping of this area. Who is there? Which village has how many girls? Everything, and they are just waiting to pounce. And this is not that hard. If India sets its mind to it, I think that needs to be fixed also. Otherwise, at least India needs to move it into United Nations saying this is ethnic genocide, and then you have to do something about it. I hope something like that happens soon. Now, how many of you have read Breaking India by Rajiv Malhotra?
Yes.
Wow, quite a few. So, Rajiv Malhotra's book talks about breaking India forces from a top-down approach. He looks at it from which are the funding agencies who are getting money into India to do the conversions and all that. My book takes a look at it from the bottom up. What happens in the ground when you have gobs of money? Now, many of us thought that demonetization was done to take out black money, right? Okay. When I started writing this book, I looked at one data point, which was in 2011 November, 2 containers from Dubai came to Kochi in the dark of the night. Each container had close to 5,000 crores of fake notes, 500 and 1,000 rupee notes. And the 2 containers, that is 10,000 crores, right? Now, when I was doing my book release in Kochi, the chief guest was the Director General of Police of Kerala. The DGP is the highest ranking person in that state. His name is Dr. T.P. Senkumar. And he said that probably the number is on the lower side. The number is probably on a much higher side. And we went back and did a few different ways to look at this to do the right math. And we arrived at a slightly different number, a much higher number. How's that? So when demonetization was done, the government said that it is going to eliminate 13% of the black money that was stuck and circulating in India, which meant that they said we were expecting 87% of the money to come back. Guess what? 113% came back. The government has not made this thing public. I've had this information confirmed to me from various sources. So how much is that? 26% over. 26% is almost 1/4 of fake currency, right? So if you use that number and you think about in 2011, India's, or let's say 2016, India's total output was around 18 lakh crores. 25% of that is 4.5 lakh crores. India is, till 2016, it was a cash-based economy, which means the M1, M2, M3, the velocity of money, M3, in India is 10x. So 4.5 lakh crores, if it rotated 10 times in the Indian economy, that is 45 lakh crores. 45 lakh crores was in play in India, fake currency. And the interesting thing that Dr. T.P. Senkumar said was that he took a known fake note and a known Indian real note, took it to the bank and told the bank cashier that there's one fake and there's one real here. Can you identify it? And the bank employee identified the fake currency as the real currency. That's how well this was faked. And how did this happen? It wasn't by chance that Pakistan happened to get this thing right. You see, broadly, there are 3 things that go into making currency notes. The machine that you use, the paper that you use, and the security threads that you use, like the silver thread and then some other holographic signatures and things like that. Now, what happened was Mr. P. Chidambaram, in his infinite wisdom, he decided to source the currency paper from the same company in United Kingdom that was selling to Pakistan. So that was the last variable. I mean, they could get the security threads by honey trapping the officials. I'm not saying that everyone got honey trapped, but they had enough idea about how the security threads were going, were being put into. So when India started buying paper from the same source, the last jigsaw in the puzzle was solved, and they were coming out with extremely high quality fake currency notes. What has that done to the economy? By the way, after the demonetization, the numbers that are being said is only 15% of the fake currency has been recovered. Where did the rest of the money go? If you looked at Kerala today, every oceanfront property, every riverfront property is owned by a member of the minority. Every property worth owning on the only national highway in Kerala is also owned by a member of the minority community. They have a plan that if India were to try and act decisively, remember the 1921 Malabar riots? Mopla riots. So they have something like this hatching. Unfortunately, this is not everyone, it's a few people. But when you are given limitless money, it can wreak havoc. Today, the Christians in Kerala also are waking up. They have also complained to the Home Minister saying that 4,000 of our girls have been trapped in love jihad. It's been happening for Hindu girls for a long time. They have newspaper advertisements where they give you a rate sheet. If you're a Nair girl, so much. Brahmin girl, so much. Menon girl, so much. And now Christian girls, everything. This is a rate sheet. It gets printed out. It is how blatant that is happening. And T.B. Senkumar said the ground situation is much worse. Why? Because you have kids who are impressionable, meaning Hindu girls, and when they go to college, they are being vied for their attention by Hindu boys, Christian boys, and Muslim boys. Hindu boys are riding broken bicycles that their dad probably handed them down, whereas these Muslim kids are coming in the latest motorcycle. They are using the latest cars, and people know that, hey, this guy is illiterate, he could barely sign his name. Suddenly he's now having an SUV, he's got a 4-floor bungalow. Where did the money come from? So this was a very carefully planned operation to try and put in thousands of crores of money into the hands of a few. Now what I'm hearing is that property in Tamil Nadu and in Karnataka is also being strategically bought. You have to remember this, strategically being bought. So things are getting to the next level. I'll give you another example. Last week in Chennai, there is a neighborhood which has a Muslim majority called Washermanpet. Now in Washermanpet, they started out anti-CAA riots. And the reason that riot started was DMK, which is the opposition in Tamil Nadu, they wanted to raise 1 crore signatures opposing the CAA. 1 crore, that is 10 million. 10 million signatures, they wanted to do it. And the leader said, well, we need to do this thing in 24 hours. Now, 1 crore signatures, it's very, very difficult to do. So what happened? He calls his rank and file and said, each and every one of you, here are 10 different colored pencils. Okay, write any name that you can think of. So it was all made up. There was the 1 crore signatures completely made up. And then they want to also protest. And the government said, you are not getting any permissions anymore for anti-CAA protests. So what do they do next? What do they do next? They go to this place called Washermanpet, and then riots break out. The mobs actually have beaten the police. 2 of the policemen were really badly injured. One is a lady, third one is a lady, and she's fighting for her life. And all they did was try to stop them from damaging public property. It gets better. This happened around 7 p.m. The riots are happening between 7:30, 8 or so. By 9:30, within an hour, every big town in Tamil Nadu erupts in protests. Everywhere, thousands of people out on the streets. What's even more interesting is they have got posters printed. How the heck can you get a poster printed in 1 hour? How did you know that there are going to be these riots happening in Chennai, and that you are going to have, that you have to be all prepared? This is just out of the world. That is the kind of operational efficiency that they have acquired, and we are in for a lot of interesting times ahead. I do hope that this Modi government doesn't stop. They need to pass the Uniform Civil Code Act immediately, because what you have in India is a very asymmetric application of civil law. You have some people who are following modern laws, and there are some who are stuck in 16th century Aurangzeb executed laws. This is not going to happen. This has got to stop. It has to stop today. And I hope that happens. And this is the precursor. They are making all these protests now because they know that if they don't do this thing, if Uniform Civil Code comes, then a lot more curbs are going to come. They cannot marry more than once. They will have to abide by the law, and so on and so forth. And they also want to make sure that if the NRC is implemented, and if NRC is implemented correctly, it is my guess that up to 10% of India's population will be found to be not born in India. These are people who have either come from Rakhine or from Bangladesh, and God knows where else. We don't even know how many other countries they have come from. And that needs to be weeded out. I mean, they may not be able to send them all back, but at least make them like, permanent residents in the United States. And clearly, US shouldn't have a problem with that. And I find it very strange that Mr. Trump says that he's going to talk about Kashmir with Modi and also about the rights of the minorities. I want to just tell a couple of small stories about how well minorities have been treated in India. I don't know how true this is, but I believe that when the government of the country of Israel was formed and their parliament is the Knesset, when they gathered, among the very first, or one of the first resolutions they passed was, in the whole world, every country persecuted against us, but you, India, always treated us with, welcomed us with open arms. So, thank you, India. Same way, the Parsis, which is a very, very small community, it's a very, very small community that came to India and they were given complete shelter. In fact, only 91 Parsis came in one ship, 6 women and 85 men. And when they went to meet the king in Gujarat, the king asked, "What can you do for us?" He was just curious, what these people had, what skill set they had. So their leader said, "Can I get a bowl of milk?" And somebody gave him a bowl of milk. And he, fishes through his bag, takes out some sugar and puts it in the milk and mixes it and gives it to the king. This is what we can do. We can sweeten your milk. And sure enough, Parsis are probably the richest minority in India today. And in fact, you don't even see them different from the existing. They have integrated themselves so well into the society. And this is what India is. This is what Sanatana Dharma is. If you look back, if you go back, 2,500 years, the whole world was Sanatani. Now you are seeing Ganesha, statues, idols being unearthed in all sorts of places. Lithuania. In fact, the Lithuanian language is very close in its grammar construct to Sanskrit. So is Latin. So what I'm trying to say is that we're all Sanatanis once, and this is the religion, this is the dharma that can pave way for a safe, peaceful, and happy world. Thank you very much.